Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Tell Your Story. I'm your host, Todd Nesloni, the Director of Culture and Strategic Leadership at TEPSA. And each episode, I look to bring you a different guest who has encouraged, inspired, or challenged me in one way or another and bring them on to share some of their story in hopes that it inspires you to tell some of yours. I'm thrilled for this episode to have my friend Johora Warren on with me today. Johora, tell everybody who you are.
Hey, Todd, thank you so much for having me. I'm Johora Warren. I am newly 30 years old. I love saying that. Like, I'm not one of those people that's scared of sharing my age. I'm 30. I am currently a fifth grade teacher in Tampa, Florida, and I teach fifth grade ELA and the gifted inclusion classroom.
Okay. Awesome. Well, I can't wait to chat with you today. Well, one of the first questions I always love to ask educators is, your path into education. Were you one of those that grew up knowing for sure teaching was for you, or did you kind of figure it out later in the game?
Yeah, absolutely not. I was not one of those that would teach my dolls or anything like that. Teaching was not on the list of goals that I
Yeah.
had or the list of careers. When I was in elementary school, I wanted to be a writer. I love
Uh-huh.
writing. So I wanted to be a writer. And then actually in second grade, I wanted to be the first female firefighter. And then somebody told me that there had already been lots of female firefighters by that time. So then I was like, okay, you know what? I'm going to do news. I'm going to do television news. That is something that I'm really interested in. And then I actually have my degree in that. I double majored in education and in mass communications with a focus
Oh, cool.
on television journalism. And it was just rough. I knew that that wasn't a path I could take because I couldn't seek out stories about people's
Mhm.
misery,
Right.
things that people like someone's house burned down and I need to go interview them. I'm too
Yeah.
empathetic to do
Yeah.
that. I would just
Mhm.
cry.
Yeah.
So I landed on teaching. And while I didn't initially want to be a teacher, I always loved learning.
Mhm.
I loved learning. I had some incredible teachers growing up, and I always loved transitioning that knowledge
Yeah.
to other people. So it ended up working.
Well, and I love that so much because I can see some similarities between our stories. I always thought I wanted to be in social work, and then I realized that you got to deal with a lot of messy stuff. And I was like, I can't disconnect myself emotionally. Like, that's too much. It's already hard enough for me to disconnect myself emotionally in teaching. Like, that's hard
Yes.
too. But so I want to jump around here because you said something that stuck out that you wanted to be a writer since you were little. Is that
Yes.
something still that you want to pursue one day?
Yes, absolutely. And actually, I have a lot of fans, i.e., my mom and some of my really close friends, but I just love like social commentary and just finding
Yeah.
the humor in the messiness of life
Right.
and all the silly things. So I love just writing about, like right now, for example, I am barricaded in a room because I have two little ones that are on the other side of the wall. Like, what are they up to? I don't know, but
Yeah.
let's write about it. So I love just writing and connecting with people in that way.
Right. And so when you decided that education was the path for you, did you know it was going to be elementary?
I didn't. Most of my experience prior to coming into the classroom was with high school students, but I'm 5'3" and I'm really young looking. So I was like, I don't know that they will take me
Yeah.
seriously. I blend in a little too much. So let me go with like even the smaller people.
Right.
So
And
that's
it's
why I
so funny
landed.
you say that. I remember when I was teaching fifth grade, and that was one of the same reasons I stayed in elementary because I'm short. And so I remember there were so many times the principal would come in the room and they'd be like, "Where is your teacher?" And I'm like, I'm right here. Like I'm just in a small group right now because we just blend in so much. Do you see that
Right.
too?
Yes. I'll be like popping up from under a desk, like, I'm over here. I'm just
Yeah.
reading with some kids.
I love that. And so, now that you've been a teacher for a little bit, what is something you feel like you've learned about yourself through teaching?
Oh, it's funny. I think from becoming a parent and kind of like getting older, I have realized that like this is someone's baby. This is
Yeah.
someone's everything. This is their world. And we need to treat them like such. So
Mhm.
just understanding that these are little people, they're just a little younger than us. They just have a little bit less life experiences than us, and treating them as such. We have the ability to empower like the next generation of leaders. So
Mhm.
that's something that I've learned about, is just treating those children the way that I would want to be
Yeah.
treated, and the way I would want my own children to be treated, or my nieces and my nephews to be treated, and conveying to them that they matter.
Mhm. Now, I see the shirt you're wearing. Am I
Yes,
correct in recognizing it?
yes, it is.
Is that a Lanisha Tab shirt?
It is. It is. I saw her wear it the other week, and I was like, You're right. School is technically out, with
Yeah.
distance learning. And I have my fresh twist out. So
I love it. I just saw you wearing that shirt and I was like, I think I recognize that
yeah.
shirt. So I had to mention it. But
Hi,
so
Lanisha.
Johora, when you mentioned that, you're going through the same thing all the other educators across the world are going through right now, and that's distance learning, figuring all that out, learning as you go. You're also in a state where they've canceled school for the rest of the year. And so talk to me a little bit about how you're managing, because I know like you're fifth grade, so that probably means the kids go on to a different school for sixth grade, right?
Yes.
So
Yes.
you're one of the teachers where it's like, not only did you not get to tell your kids goodbye this year, but they're also going to be going to a new campus. So how are you managing all the emotions and still making it work?
Oh, yeah, it is a lot of emotions. We've had to cancel so many things. Like this
Mhm.
year was going to be the first year that we were going to Universal Studios as opposed to Animal Kingdom. So
Uh-huh.
the kids were super excited about that. But one way that I've been managing it is reaching out by any means necessary, even if it is by, texting the parents like,
Mhm.
hey, are they okay? Let's put the schoolwork aside right now because we're in unprecedented times. Like, how are you doing? How
Yeah.
are they doing? How can I support you? How
Mhm.
can, we support each other?
Yeah.
And we're just trying to adapt and be flexible.
Yeah.
So we're still going to be giving out their certificates and things like that. It's
Mhm.
just going to be looking a little differently. Like when they come and pick up their school supplies, they'll pick up their certificates and things like
So
that, trying
how
to
are you
spread
balancing
that.
though, having the little ones at home and trying to do all of this?
Oh my gosh, asking for help. So I actually live in Tampa, and the school that I work at is in Wesley Chapel. So it's about a 35-40 minute drive. So
Okay.
every day, so that I'm able to get some work done, I put the babies in the car and I take them to my mom's house and I go in one of the rooms. And so I'm able to connect with my other kids, my
Uh-huh.
students. So I
I
ask
love
for
that.
help, I beg for help, I bribe them. Gushers. My baby loves
Whatever works,
Gushers.
right?
Yes,
Whatever
whatever
works.
works.
Well, Johor, you're also pretty active on social media. And so when did that become a platform where you began to feel brave enough to kind of share you and your journey?
So I would say it was about 2 years ago. I was pretty active on Facebook, but I wasn't connecting with parents or
Mhm.
students in that way. And then as I got older students, I could see how social media was so ingrained and intertwined
Right.
in their lives. So I'm like, okay. As soon as I got an Instagram, I had some of my students requesting. And I'm like,
Mhm.
okay, well, I have a following of little people. So I need to make sure that, everything is appropriate. But I also want them to see that I'm a person too.
Yeah.
So, and, I'm not just, I don't live in my classroom, I don't
Mhm.
sleep under the desk. Um, and just, it's been such a cool experience to like kind of follow the kids where they
Yeah.
are, and like the kids are changing now.
Yeah.
So I joined TikTok. I do some of that, those ridiculous dances,
You
because
do so wait, hold on. You joined it and you're doing TikToks? Because
yes.
I know several educators who are like, I joined because they're funny, but I'm not doing any. Like me, I can't even join because I'm so nervous about it. Are you just like totally that comfortable where you just love being silly like that?
So yes and no. Initially it was out of being annoyed with all the things in my
Yeah.
classroom, like, what are you doing? And then I was like, you know what, I'm joining TikTok, but y'all need to teach me. So during recess one day, a whole group of them, of students from different classes came and they showed me how to do some of the dances. I was like, okay.
Yeah.
And um, just seeing how happy and excited they were and how I didn't talk down about some of the things that they enjoyed. It's been fun. It's been really cool. Like them saying, Miss Warren, follow me, and I'll follow them. So I've done like 3 of the TikTok
Mhm.
challenges just because I'm old and some of them are really hard. They're like
I
really
watch them and
difficult.
I think, I have no rhythm. I'm definitely not putting that out there publicly for people to
Right.
see. And there's people out there who make really funny ones and stuff, but I'm like, I'll just keep consuming these. I don't really
Right.
I just can't get over myself to do them.
Right.
Well,
Listen, some of them
Johor,
have like 50.
you also, you're on here, you're connecting with so many people. And sometimes when you get caught in those loops of social media and seeing all the great things people are doing, it can begin to make you feel inferior, make you feel like your ideas aren't good enough. How do you battle those moments when doubt begins to creep in? How do you keep it from taking root?
So interesting question. When I started my, teacher or lifestyle Instagram, I was following all these amazing master
Mhm.
teachers and seeing what they were doing. And I had my personal Instagram because you should still have some of that balance. I had my personal Instagram and I would still see some of those teachers. So like when I am just, being me, just being Johora, not
Mhm.
Mrs. Warren, not
Mhm.
mom. And I'm seeing that and I'm like, oh, I should be doing something right now instead of watching the 6th hour of 90 Day Fiance. I should be doing something. So one thing that I did was on my personal Instagram, I went ahead and just left that for just friends and family
Right.
and unfollowed some of those teachers just so I
Mhm.
could have that clear distinction. And when I'm in feeling like creative and when I'm feeling like, oh, I'm going to be a world changer today, then I hop on my teacher Instagram and I look and see and get those ideas. So
I
I just
like
have that
that.
balance.
I love having that balance of knowing that, you're not following anybody but friends and family on this one. So it keeps it this is just personal. I don't have any pressure. So I think I love that idea so much. Well, Johor, when we look at our lives and we see the paths they've taken and there's been successes and failures and heartbreak and great things that happen, when you reflect on your life path, what is one thing that really stands out to you that you think that was pretty instrumental into creating the woman we see today?
So I've talked about my 2 children. I have a 4-year-old and I
Mhm.
have a 2.5-year-old. And after both of my children, I suffered from postpartum depression. So
Um,
after my my son, it got until about 10 months before I realized that something's not right.
right.
And I'll explain a quick little story. So I had moved from Gainesville to Tampa. So my husband moved from Gainesville to Tampa, and I was still teaching in Gainesville. So I had just had a newborn. I took maternity leave, and I missed my students so much that I was commuting. I was going from
Wow.
Tampa to Gainesville, and I would stay a couple days a week in Gainesville, and then I would come back, once or twice
Wow.
a week, and I would drive back and forth for 6 months. I did that. And it showed me that like I needed to have that difference. I needed to have that
Mhm.
balance of being mom and also following some of my goals that I
Yeah.
had. So after my son and when I had my daughter, I knew I was predisposed to having postpartum depression. So I talked about it and I seeked out help
Mhm.
um, and got support for that. And once I realized that I had to take care of Johora first before I could be
Mhm.
Mrs. Warren, before I could be mom, then I realized that just by taking care of me, it enhances the other roles that I
Yeah.
play.
Well, I'd love to chat about that a little bit. So, when you talk about the postpartum and the first child, and it was about 10 months before you realized, what was the like determining factor where you're like, okay, there's something clearly not right here. I need to go and talk to somebody or get some help or something.
So it was just I did some reading and I was seeing all these moms that were happy, and I was
Mhm.
kind of like probing a little bit like, hey, do you ever feel sad? No, not really. I mean, sometimes I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, I feel devastatingly sadness. I
Yeah.
feel like I don't even want to get up out of bed. I feel like I am not a good mom. This
Mhm.
child doesn't deserve me. I don't deserve this child. And then I was kind of spiraling,
Mhm.
and I opened up to a couple friends. And then once I kind of said, like, yeah, being a mom isn't that great, and they asked some
Yeah.
questions, I I told a little bit more. So
Mhm.
I'm such an advocate of sometimes with mental illness and with mental health issues, people can't seek the help because they
Mhm.
don't know what's going on with
Right.
them. So we as friends and family, we have to ask questions.
Mhm.
We have to. So it I had people in my corner who were asking me the right questions, and then they were like, okay, this isn't, let's get the help that you need.
Yeah.
So
Well, and I think what you're saying there is huge is making sure that family and friends aren't afraid to ask, because it's
yes.
just like you said, with your first child, you didn't know that was, you just felt terrible and thought that something was wrong with you. And
Yeah.
then once you started to ask those questions and family started asking you, and so when you had your second child, did was it glaringly obvious to you, like, okay, these are the same things that I dealt with before, I'm going to not let this go 10 months, I'm going to deal with this now?
Yes, and it's so funny because even though I knew that I this could absolutely happen to me again, when I went to my doctor for my 6-week checkup, she's like, "How are you?" I'm like, I'm fine." Because we're so used to just saying,
Yeah.
like, we don't want to bother anyone, we don't want to be a hindrance on them, and she's like, "No, I know you. You're not
Yeah.
fine." So I had a doctor that advocated for me. Um and she said, like, "I have watched you grow,
Yeah.
and through your pregnancy and then have this baby, you are not the same.
Right.
So let's talk about this." I'm like, "You're right, I'm not the same. This is terrible. I don't like feeling like this. Help me."
Yeah.
So and it was at that point that she actually prescribed medication,
Hmm.
and I that was my lifeline.
Right.
That was absolutely my lifeline, having the proper medication, and that's how I'm able to get through day to day.
Well, and thinking about that happening with your first child and you going so long without knowing what the issues were, when you were pregnant with your second child, did you already have those fears bubbling up of, oh my gosh, what if this happens again?
Yes, yes, I did. It's funny because I think that it's not just a sudden shift of you had the baby and, oh, now I'm sad. it,
Right.
it is like a gradual type of thing, like you're scared and you're nervous, and I'm like, oh my gosh. And for me, I was thinking, like, I have so much love for my son, how can I possibly have the love
Yeah.
for another being? Like, this is,
Uh-huh.
like, he doesn't deserve this, he deserves all my time, and now I have to split it. But a good quote I heard was, love doesn't divide, it multiplies. So that helped me a lot.
I
But
like
yeah,
that.
I just, during my pregnancy, I did feel that, and I let my doctor know about
Mhm.
it, so she made sure to ask those questions too.
Well, and you seem really comfortable talking about this now. And so, was there like a turning point where you were like, okay, I've told friends and family, but I'm okay with talking about this without feeling like there's a stigma attached or something like that. When did that kind of change where you were like, I'm okay with this. I'm okay with talking about this.
You know, I'm not sure when that turning point was, but I think it was, I was looking on social media, like trying to see, like, does anybody else feel the way that I
Mhm.
do? Nobody possibly feels the way that I do because they're not talking about it. So
Mhm.
as soon as I kind of took that brave step forward and started talking about it, then people were rushing to me like,
Mhm.
"Thank you so much for sharing this. Like, this is what I'm going through, but I just didn't know what to say, didn't have the
Right.
words, and or I thought something was just wrong with just me." And
Mhm.
mental illness is lonely,
Yeah.
and you think that you're the only one going through it. And once I started kind of opening that conversation and then putting like a little status here or sharing like
Mhm.
an infographic here and then
Yeah.
seeing how people were responding to it, it felt like, okay, this is something that I need to do,
Mhm.
because you can possibly save a life.
Yeah. And what I'm reminded of again and again is, those parts of ourselves are really personal. They're really difficult when we are going through them. But every single time that we share that struggle, there's always somebody who comes along and says, "Oh my gosh, thank you for saying this." And I'm like, "Oh yeah, that's why I keep sharing that
Yeah.
piece or I keep doing that, because there's somebody in that moment who feels like they're the only one going through it but doesn't know how to verbalize that, and they just
Yes.
need that emotional push from somebody else to go, okay, you were brave enough first. I'm okay. I can take the step now too.
Yes.
And
I
so
love that. That's why.
so I love that you are open enough to share it, and to me it's powerful too, that I think you're a great example of learning through your mistakes and knowing that the first time you let it go so long because you didn't know what was wrong,
Hmm.
that you took preemptive measures the second time. And that doesn't mean it was any easier or any less
Right.
scary. It just means you were more prepared. And I think, that's what we have to do too, because so many people that deal with different mental issues, whether it is, depression or alcoholism or anything like that, like those are constant struggles that you just have to keep
Yes,
learning and growing with yourself. And
you
so,
do.
Johora, who is somebody in your life that just played a really big role into the woman you are?
Oh, my mom. My mom. Yeah, absolutely. My mom is so selfless and so caring and so generous. And I always think to myself, what would my mom do? What would she say? She's just an amazing person. And I'm not just saying that just because she watches my kids for free.
That's right. There you go. Well, Johora, one question I always love to end all these conversations on is, I believe as people, there are things that we hold true to our hearts that are just deep within who we are. And so for people who are listening or watching today, what would your one thing be that you hope they walk away with?
Oh, okay. Um, I would say you matter, you are loved. If you are feeling sadness every day, and it's most of your day, it's okay,
Yeah.
and you can get through this.
Mhm.
And sometimes it just takes that brave step of talking to people. And if you see someone who has like a friend that kind of fall into the wayside and you haven't seen them in a while, ask those questions, reach out to them, talk to them. Because again, you could save a life.
Yeah. I love that. And that is such a beautiful and powerful way to end this. Well, Johora, you know that I love your energy, your passion. I got to spend a couple of days with you in Denver and got to know you a
Yes.
little bit. And so thank you so much for agreeing to come on to tell your story.
Thank you so much for asking me.
And thank you everybody for listening or watching another episode. Remember, you can check out all the past episodes on iTunes, Spotify, SoundCloud, YouTube, wherever you get it, it's there. I hope today's conversation with Johora has encouraged you to get out there and tell your story, because every story matters.